Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode with us here at Pert Near Outdoors. This is going to be another fun discussion, kind of circled around the theme of conservation and public lands. So this week we are joined by Josh Balisteri. Josh is the Stewardship Director for the WNY Land Trust, which is a kind of a local organization here that's been around for quite some time, and we'll learn a little bit about them and what they're up to. And so that will be today's discussion, dive into all different types of things. Josh is a new hunter, so he's only been hunting for about 3 years now, but has obviously a passion for the outdoors and wildlife and nature. So we really dig into a lot of that. I think it's an interesting conversation. It's tapping into a new hunter and what got him to where he is, but then we also talk quite a bit about nature, wilderness, invasive species, some of the challenges we're seeing here in our region with whether it be invasives or just the landscape in general. So very interesting discussion. So I hope you enjoy what we've got coming up for you here in a few minutes. But first, a little housekeeping stuff. So first and foremost, a correction from last week's episode. Crazy Uncle Glenn got excited and talked about the promotion that Backcountry Hunters and Anglers is doing for the September membership drive, and mentioned that there would be a First Light hat that would come with your membership. That was changed and updated. Not sure why, but Glenn informed me last week after I published the episode that was incorrect, and he spoke a little loose in the tongue. So you will get a free T-shirt with your membership if you either renew or if you are a new member joining up in the month of September. So if you see any advertisements, or if you head on over to backcountryhunters.org and you want to sign up to become a member, you will receive a T-shirt for this month. So just wanted to correct that and clear the waters there. So hopefully nobody's upset. It was an honest mistake, and it's really not that big of a deal. So we'll move right on. I'm recording this on Sunday, so we are halfway through Labor Day weekend. It's been nice to have some of these cooler temps, and I hope everyone's enjoyed the weekend with their friends and family and gotten out and done something outdoors. Monday night we will be brewing our beer, so we've been talking about that for the last couple weeks. Danny, Russ, and I will be getting together over there at Windy Brew in the evening on Monday night, and we'll be brewing up an IPA. So we're looking for a little engagement from the crowd. We haven't picked out a name for the beer yet because we want that to be something that's kind of community driven. So we're looking for a creative name for the beer. It can be silly, it can be serious, whatever you want. I've already received a couple suggestions, a couple good ones. So if you want to throw your idea in the hat, per se, you can either send us a text, any of us. You can send us a direct message on Instagram or Facebook, give a phone call, whatever. Reach out to us. I'll probably be pushing that middle of this month, maybe next weekend, trying to get a list of suggested names. I've got one that I love, but I don't know if I want to. It's not my thing. It's the group's thing. So I definitely want to get a couple good names in there, and then we'll have a little Instagram poll to see who is going to be lucky enough to have their name used for our beer, and we'll have a little prize pack for whoever the winner is that's selected there. Not sure exactly what that will be yet. We have our hats coming. I'm expecting them before the end of the month, so by the time we know who the winner is, I would like to throw at least a hat or two at the winner there, and some stickers and stuff like that as well. So that's the game plan on that end. So send over your creative names for the beer, and we'll get that rolling. We are still planning on doing a release party for that on the 30th of September at Windy Brew. So mark your calendars there. That's be kind of a fun opportunity to get everyone together. That's the day before deer season opens here in New York. So some fun with that, and we can have a couple drinks, celebrate a little bit the start of the season, and also donate some money to some good causes. I've been in touch with a couple different organizations locally here that we're going to try to work with, and really excited to start down that path too. So good stuff on that end. Real quick stuff on BHA. So 2 things are going on right now, primarily with BHA. We're doing a virtual Learn to Hunt series each Thursday night of the month of September. So we've already got the first one under our belts. The panelists did an awesome job on week 1, and I'm fortunate enough to be on the panel for week 2 and 3. So this week we'll be talking about, the first week kind of covered the basics of finding a place to hunt, especially if you're looking for public land, what to be looking for, how to find a spot to get in, things of that nature. So that video is available up on the Facebook page, as well as on the, I believe, Backcountry Hunters and Anglers official YouTube page, posted it up on theirs. So you can always get it there as well. So watch back to that. If you're spanking new to hunting, or even just a couple years in, I actually learned quite a bit of stuff from, I tuned in and watched it, and I learned quite a few cool things, especially about how to navigate the New York State DEC website and some of the features on there. So I definitely encourage of all skill levels to check that out. Throw it up on your YouTube, on your TV at home, and just let it play and learn a little bit. So that's that. Then this week we will have discussion about, okay, you're in the woods. What's your setups? What's your clothing? Different clothing options and gear side of things. We'll talk a little bit about tree stands and ground blinds, and still hunting will be a little bit of a discussion today, or this week on Thursday. So if you'd like to tune in for that, you can either just watch live on Facebook when it's streaming at 8 p.m., or you could actually register for the Zoom call, and you can do that by going through there's links and promos all over on the Facebook and Instagram page for New York Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. So head on over there and check that out. I don't really see a huge benefit to tuning in to the Zoom. You can do the same stuff from the Facebook side of it, but if it's easier for you to run the Zoom on your phone or something, feel free to do that. So check that out. That'll be going on all month. And lastly, with Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, as this is Public Lands Month, there is a promo going on. Trying to encourage everyone to get out there and pick up some garbage and leave it better than you found it. I think that's a great way of putting it. I think I listened to Todd Waldron's podcast yesterday, and he said it that way, and I think that's very right. So if you're out and about walking on public lands, even if you're not on public lands, if you're on your own property, if you see some garbage, grab it, put it in your pocket, put it in your backpack, throw it in a garbage bag, whatever. So this month, Backcountry Hunters and Anglers has teamed up with First Light, and First Light will be donating $5 for every bag that is picked up, and they will be keeping track of that by social media posts. So if you post a picture of the bag of garbage that you collected while you were out and about, you can hashtag Public Land Packout, hashtag Public Land Owner, and you will be entered for some cool prizes, but you will also have your bag counted towards the, I believe it's going to be a $5,000 max payout. So the goal is 1,000 bags. So if my math is right, that should be accurate. So we're trying to collect 1,000 bags nationwide, and the little competition going on between the states and stuff like that too. So let's show them that we are proud here in New York, and that we're doing our part to clean up and leave it better than we found it. So check all that out. There's promos and information about that all over Instagram and Facebook right now in the BHA realm of things. So a lot of stuff there focused on public land this month, as it is Public Lands Month, and get out there and enjoy it. It's ours. We need to protect it and use it, because it's there for us to do whatever you please, as long as you aren't breaking the law. So that is it, folks. Hope you have a great week. Enjoy this nice fall weather. Looks like we got a couple hot days coming, so don't take those air conditioners out yet. And that's it. Keep feeding them.
Hello.
Yeah, that's your name.
Squirrels got me.
Big Jim.
Yeah.
Really, 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 really cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
That's good that you think of it, because that's what your hunting typically is cold and fun.
Yeah.
Yesterday morning, I'm glassing up on the pass, and I see these deer moving, and I'm like, ooh, there's some deer moving. All of a sudden, I just see this person just head down, just hauling ass, wearing shorts and a t-shirt with a pack on. And I'm like, is that Tard? My dad always talks about floating through the woods like the autumn breeze.
So Robert's
when you're
the
275 pounds, I don't know how you do that, but
the Freightliner. It's just like a creeper. You're just kind of up in the corner watching what's going on down there.
Yeah.
He's
like,
he's up there slapping it, pissing all over everything.
Is it warm yet?
How did you know the name of the actor?
That's right. I know.
Why did you say his name?
Hervé Villechaize.
You know what pert near means.
If you know what pert near means and you live in America, you're a redneck too.
Welcome to the Log Talk Podcast, brought to you by Pert Near Outdoors. Let's let it rip. So we are sitting here in East Aurora, or are we in Wales? Where the hell are we?
We are technically in Wales.
Technically in Wales.
Yeah.
The lines are real confusing out here.
Yeah, it's just over. Just
Yeah.
over.
It's a beautiful setting for a podcast. So I'm sitting down here with Josh Balisteri.
Balisteri.
Damn it. See, I didn't ask you because I wanted to try to do
you
it
say
right.
it kind of with a hard Buffalo accent.
That
That
is
hard
scary.
A.
Yeah, Josh Balisteri. And, of course, Danny Boy. So, Danny Boy, we since you found this place, I figured I would extend the gesture and invite you.
Oh, that was nice of you.
Mm-hmm. It's the least I could do for you, buddy. Yeah. So, Josh is he works for the Western New York Land Conservancy, and I wanted to. Him and I have kind of corresponded back and forth. We actually ran into each other at the last social event of the history of social events.
Yeah.
Which was, I think it was March 12th or March 3rd. I think it was the 12th. It was Thursday night, March 12th, pint night, BHA pint night at Rusty Nickel Brewing Company, and you came up and introduced yourself, and we hit it off, and we're chatting, and that was the last time we were able to go out and do anything fun with a group of people. So
it's the day before the storm, pretty much.
Before the world ended. Yeah. So thanks for having us here, and we're sitting outside the kind of little headquarters you got here on the property. And so today we're going to kind of chat with you, get to know you a little bit, and what the Western New York Land Conservancy is all about, and some of your goals and the things that you guys are up to in the region, and then want to get to know a little bit about you too and what your journey into hunting, because from what the conversations you and I have had, you're kind of new into that.
Yeah,
so
totally.
I'm interested in that, and then we'll, I'm sure, get into some other good topics.
Yeah,
so,
totally.
Welcome to the
Thank
podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Been listening for a while now, so.
Good answer.
There's one of 8 right there.
One of 8. Our numbers are growing.
Yeah, no, I think I heard you on Todd Waldron's podcast, and then recognized you at BHA Pine Night. So, yeah,
recognize the voice.
It's been a while.
So you recognize the nose.
No, I saw the Pert Near sticker on your truck.
Okay.
And then I think you were wearing a hat too. So
yeah, I was wearing a hat. Put it all together.
Yep.
So what's where are you from? What's your background?
Yeah, so I grew up around Buffalo. I grew up in Orchard Park. Grew up around here, just hiking around. Developed love the outdoors pretty quick, and kind of saw that as my career path in high school, and ended up pursuing it. So that's kind of my local background. Professionally, I work for the Western New York Land Conservancy now. I went to SUNY College of Environmental Science and Forestry in Syracuse, New York. Have a degree in natural resource management, minor in protected area management, and forestry. So got a pretty cool background. Love ESF. A lot of good memories there. And so now I work at the Land Conservancy. I worked in environmental consulting for a couple years. Actually lived in Virginia Beach doing that, doing wetland delineations, some other kind of permitting side of environmental work. And then ended up transferring to that company's Buffalo office for a while, and got a job with the Land Conservancy, which I'm very grateful for and enjoy very much. So,
yes. How'd you end up stumbling into this job?
So I had land trust work was my goal. So, and that was my goal. It was a bonus that I'd always known about the Western New York Land Conservancy, being a Buffalo guy and wanting to eventually get back here and work on the land that kind of brought me up and pointed me in the direction I'm in now. So, I just kind of got in, starting to talk with people here, following their events, ended up going to one of their events, and a job ended up popping up maybe 6 months after that, and applied and
Nice.
got
The rest
the job.
is history.
The rest is history. Yeah.
So you mentioned that like land trust is something that you were focused on, that you were interested in. Explain what a land trust is, because there's a lot of different
Sure.
groups out there that are doing those sort of things. But I guess I couldn't, if somebody asked me, I couldn't say what is a land trust. I don't know. Know what that is.
Yeah. So there's kind of some different kind of styles in different land trusts, but generally land trust. Our mission, the Western New York Land Conservancy, is protect areas with significant conservation value for the benefit of future generations. So basically, we protect special places, whether that be through protecting natural areas. We also protect farmland. So, basically, we're a nonprofit. So we protect this land in perpetuity forever. Once it's protected, we can do that through a variety of ways, including conservation easements, outright buying of the property. But in general, land trusts buy or put conservation easements on property. It's then protected forever, which is kind of unique in the sense that it's different from public lands or government agency lands that are can be affected by politics and things like that. This is kind of a privately protected piece of property like Kenny Glen that we're sitting at now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the difference. It's a private protection. It's done so through donations and grants and things like that, but it's privately protected land for the benefit of conservation.
Nice.
Yeah. And yeah.
I see you holding your microphone up, Danny.
Yeah, what do you mean, like, so it's protected, and I guess could you just elaborate on that? Is no one else can buy it and build on it, is kind of the thought process behind that?
Correct. Yeah, so it's different case to case, but we primarily protect land in two ways. One way is a conservation easement, which is a document that essentially restricts certain uses on a property, and that easement stays with that property forever. So the landowner who put the easement on that property sells it, the next landowner has to still follow that easement, and that's with the property forever. So that's a large chunk of our properties are easements, and those can happen on farmland, those can happen on natural lands like this. And then the other way we protect land is just what we call fee property, or property that we raise money and purchase and own ourselves, which is what we are sitting at now.
Okay.
So those are the two main kind of mechanisms. And yeah, the mission is conservation, ecological conservation, and public access as well.
Yeah. And what I kind of find interesting, so are we able to talk about what's going on the other side of the creek here?
Yeah.
So this is a perfect example of that. There's another piece of property that adjoins this and also joins this to Hunters Creek, which is a county-owned park,
Yep.
correct? So explain kind of what you've got going on here with that new piece of property.
Yeah. So we're sitting at Kenny Glen. It's where our main office is that we're sitting in front of. And it's kind of a long parcel. Its western boundary is actually Hunters Creek. So we've had this property for a while. The southern boundary of this property abuts Hunters Creek County Park. So we had some kind of coordination with them. And then there's this kind of missing puzzle piece that is in between Hunters Creek and Kenny Glen that's always been there, that we've had our eye on, called Mossy Point. It's a really awesome property, really ecologically significant. And we recently closed on that, and through a bunch of generous donations and grants and things like that, we're able to purchase that property and now have an over 1,000-acre, essentially wilderness complex now between Mossy Point, Kenny Glen, and Hunters Creek County Park. So that's what, land trusts generally try to maximize their, bang for their buck by doing things like that, keep making continuity between properties. So we're super excited about it. It's been a project that the Land Conservancy has had their eye on for a really long time, and people are super excited to get out there and hike. It's named Mossy Point. There's an actual geological feature, kind of like a little peninsula that looks over the Hunters Creek Gorge that's like 300 or so feet up, maybe higher. So we're super excited about it. We officially own it as of a couple weeks ago, so it's exciting. It's awesome. Yeah, I know it's a big project.
You were telling me that it was pretty close to being done when we met each other.
Yeah.
And then everything with COVID hit.
Yeah.
And it got a little bit dicey there for a little while as far as funding and what were you guys able to do and things like that. So it's like I know Danny and I, we freak, and it's funny, if you talk to anybody that lives in this area, like Hunters Creek is something that almost everybody, either it's one of their favorite places to go and hike or trail run or bike or just go with their kids and play in the stream. Like, it's just a great park.
Yeah.
And I've always run in that boundary, but now that I know that you guys were buying it, I'm like running it with a little bit different attention. I'm like, man, I look to my right and I'm like, that's the property line right there. And soon enough we'll be able to go in there and
hike.
sniff around and see what's going on.
Yeah.
So it's
I just signed that boundary with our new sign.
Did
so
you?
Hope it looks good next time you're there.
I will judge that for myself.
Yeah. Straighten them up if you see anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll send you pictures.
Yeah.
So that's cool. That kind of lays the groundwork about what the Western New York Land Conservancy is up to. And so you mentioned that you guys have you have both some farmland that you're conserving as well as this type of land. Now you're talking about like you're trying to find there's ecological value to a piece of property. Now here, like you're kind of just talking about Mossy Point, and that's kind of somewhat obvious in the fact where it conjoins other pieces and it makes a larger whole piece. But like when you're looking at a piece of property and saying that this has ecological value, like, I mean, what does that mean to somebody of your background and your education? Because like to me, like I don't understand. I understand, but I don't understand. Like if I walk through the woods, I'm not going to tell you, oh, there's an invasive, and like that's two different worlds. Like I'm walking around looking for buck rubs, deer trails, turkey scratchings. Like that's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for that doesn't belong here. This is something of value. Like I'm not looking at things that way. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, ecological value, that's one thing we look at, and it just kind of means you could take it at any level. The species level, if there's rare plant species, rare animal species, rare plant community types, things like that, intact forest, old growth forest, just kind of, just any type of kind of unique natural feature. Western New York's a very fragmented landscape. When you're looking at it on OnX or aerial views, there's not a lot of continuity between these kind of islands of forests and then developed lands and agricultural lands. So in the case of trying to protect natural lands like this, there's those rare plants and those more kind of specific lower level things, and then there's also just trying to create continuity of large forest blocks. The way plants and animals reproduce, the larger the actual habitat area, the more likely they can have genetic diversity and continue to procreate and live on. And that's really challenged when there's these little blocks of habitat. Like things just go downhill, genetic diversity, things like that. So there's those specific things like rare plants, animals, and then also just trying to create corridors. There's a lot of talk out west and in general about corridors and creating more large habitat on the landscape scale. So there's these multiple scales. There's species communities, then forests, and then getting up to ecosystems and corridors and larger landscape level ecology, things like that.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point. And I think about some of the other areas that you go more towards the Finger Lakes, where there's property being purchased by the Nature Conservancy and what they're doing. You can almost kind of see them, and I guess you can almost see them trying to work to achieve a goal, whether it be their own goal or working. It seems like the Nature Conservancy is working closely with the state on maybe they're purchasing property that eventually the state will purchase from them. Like, is that something that you guys do at all, where you're working kind of in conjunction with the state to achieve some sort of a goal of conserving an area, or?
Yeah, so I'm not sure exactly what the Nature Conservancy is doing, but there are bigger land trusts. Like there's a organization called the Trust for Public Land that they specifically buy properties that abut or kind of accent public lands in order to just create larger, and they do that for a variety of reasons. Like they do it for the Appalachian Trail, where they're trying to create more wilderness along the trail and connect areas. So that's definitely a thing. And there are, my job is the stewardship director, so I actually do all the kind of like natural resource management, the monitoring of these properties. We have people that do, my boss does the actual kind of like land protection work, where she does the real estate and some of the legal stuff and things like that. So yeah, it's, what was your question about
to this point? Like, are you guys working at all with the state to achieve anything? Like, if you're looking at, obviously this is a county piece here with Hunters Creek, but are you working, is that something that you guys do? Because I know it's something the Nature Conservancy does, because I've talked with them about it. Yeah. That they strategically, they're working in areas where they can get pieces of property that would eventually be transitioned over to the state. I know of several different areas.
We don't do that specifically. I mean, we've worked with the state on projects through grants and things like that. But, we'd be interested in a property if it abuts a big piece of state forest, just because that then adds more of that kind of bigger connected.
But landscape. you guys are more likely to hold on to that property than to sell it or transfer it to the state.
Yeah, so generally we'd either use a conservation easement or buy it outright, depending on the property. Those are our two main mechanisms.
Explain conservation easement. 'Cause
Yeah.
I see that thrown around all the time, and I guess I don't really.
Yeah, so it's basically a legal agreement that, as a landowner, you come forward and volunteer to put this on your property. Essentially, it's not a forced thing or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a legal agreement. There's an actual document, and there's restrictions placed on the property that have conservation in mind, basically. So, in a case of farmland, that farmer comes to a land trust, and that conservation easement makes that property, it'll be farmland forever because of that easement, no matter who owns it. So basically, that farmer can rest easy knowing that his farm that maybe family farm or generational farm is always going to be a farm. So that's kind of the benefit. There's restrictions, and that varies each easement to easement. But
does that easement give access to the public in any way to that property? Or
that like a conservation easement is specifically about the property. So like a lot of it generally has to do with not developing the property, using it kind of in its current state, whether it be farmlands or natural lands, like maybe no motorized vehicles, no forestry, things like that. And it's different property to property. But
so it's a pretty open agreement. Like it's not like something that's just like this is what it is. It's almost
it's not like there's not like this uniform thing. There's a lot of similarities between them depending on the style, but it's different for each. Like the cutout of where a certain thing can or can't happen is going to be property to property and things like that. Yeah.
Interesting.
Could you explain like a few specific examples of maybe easements that you guys have and like what you specifically do on them, or?
Probably not. I probably shouldn't do that.
Yeah, that's fine.
But
asking the tough questions. Start calling you Al Roker.
You can cut that out.
Yeah.
No. I'm gonna let you fall right in your face on that one as well.
I don't know what I don't know if I should speak on, just because they're private landowners' land. So it's not like these fee properties where we own it. We can talk all day,
that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
What else you got?
Properties that you own outright just in the area. Can you just speak to, you don't have to get into specifics, but how many we have in the area, how many you guys, what you're doing on maybe each of them, some examples, and just
so
the last part.
Like I get like in what you're allowed to do on those properties. Is it pretty consistent, like how you guys structure your properties and what you can do on them?
Yeah, so I guess they are a little different, each one. Many of them have public access like this, where there's maintained trails. Kenny Glen, Owens Falls, a few other ones. We have right around 18 right now fee properties. And it varies. We own some properties where there's no public access, and there's plant community sensitive ecological features that that's kind of not the philosophy of conserving that property, and it's just didn't work and whatever. But most of them have public access. They're protected, like Kenny Glen, for example. There's trails, but it's basically maintained like you see it now. You let the native forest go through succession, and it's just managed in perpetuity is kind of the land trust lingo for forever, the way you see it. So that's kind of how the natural land fee properties are. And like things like public access and trails vary, but a lot of them have public access.
And the best place to get information on that on your website, you guys have most of that on there.
Yeah, that's all on the website. We actually just launched a new website, so there's a kind of like where to visit tab, and you can check that out. And all the ones that have infrastructure for public access, you can check out the list. There's maps, and you can always contact us if you have questions.
I know what I'm going to be doing at work tomorrow.
Yeah, well, I'm not your boss, so I won't judge you for doing that. Just funny thing. So speaking of what you do at work, I'm doing a podcast the other day, and it's late in the afternoon. It's like 3:30, 4 o'clock, and all of a sudden I see it's a Zoom call with a guy that lives in Colorado, and all of a sudden a third person logs into the Zoom call, but there's no video. It's just a picture of our Pert Near Outdoors logo.
Yeah.
I'm like, who the hell? I'm like, I didn't tell anybody else about this. I didn't do anything. Like, I have no idea. And then, like, 45 minutes in, we started talking about something. It was about reintroduction of wolves into Colorado.
Oh, nice.
And all of a sudden, you see, like, the video turn on, and it's Danny sitting in his office, and he's like got something hot to say about it. We touched a nerve there.
Oh man.
Yeah.
But it
I'll
was,
have to. Is that episode out?
yeah, that was the
Okay.
one I posted this week.
Oh, okay. I gotta check that out. I'm a big wolf guy, so
Yeah.
I'm interested. Yeah.
It's if you're not into fitness, then well,
It's not that much of a
The
fitness
first-
discussion.
the
It is,
wolves
but it
don't
isn't.
start. I'm at like 115,
Yeah.
and we haven't gotten really into wolves yet. But yeah, you're right. It's not that much fitness. I found it very interesting
You really struggle with the microphone. This is the same issues we had when we were doing the truck.
I'm a hand guy.
You are,
My
like,
hands are moving
turn
all
your
over the
head.
place.
Hold the freaking microphone.
Real lot of movement over here.
A lot of movement.
As a non-health guy,
Now you're freaking super loud.
as a guy that's not into fitness,
Uh-huh.
I found it very interesting. Just
Cool.
like a lot of different topics covered. I don't know. It's pretty good.
Yeah, it was just kind of a bullshit session. It
Yeah.
was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Chatting about that. And
Cool.
you know, we just like grilled you hard on all this like these terms and stuff. But to me, like Danny and I were very similar. We're both very interested in conservation.
Yeah.
Both of our eyes were wide open to the lands that we have here in the East, and in New York is where we are, after going on our first trip to Colorado.
Yeah.
It was a huge eye-opener to
Yeah.
us. That was what really kicked us both in the shorts, saying, like, we're really passionate about taking care of what we have and
Yeah.
sharing with other people the great things that we have.
Yeah.
Both public land and private land. We both have access, and we hunt a ton of private land. That's
Right.
great.
Yeah.
But I get so, like, public land, you don't think about it until you think about it, if that makes sense. Like Hunter's Creek, I spend hours and hours and hours there every
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
You don't think about the fact that this is here because it's yours as a taxpayer, as a resident.
Right.
To this, and
Very
you can-
easily couldn't have been there. You
Yeah,
know? It's just
for sure.
a lot of public lands. Like, man, thank God
It's 5
Teddy
minutes.
Roosevelt or like some guy in the 1800s put this aside, and it can't be
had the
messed with.
foresight to do that
Right.
stuff, because it's 5 minutes down the road, and almost everybody in almost any place that you're listening to this can think about a park you have that's within 5 to 15, 20 minutes from your house. Like, there's great value in that, and I
Right.
think if you're not utilizing those things and not caring for them, then you probably don't understand what you have that
Yeah.
close to you and how easily it could be taken away from you if you listen to some of the challenges and some of the things that are going on. We don't have a lot of those issues in New York right now, but
Right.
on other states there is. Certainly.
Yeah. Yeah, we have some cool, unique public lands with, the Adirondacks and Catskills and forest preserves and interesting state-level stuff we have here, which is super cool. So
Yeah, and it's something that not many people know about.
Yeah, totally.
Where do we want to go with that? So I was just telling you where Danny and I got started. I mean, I talk a lot. What's your, feelings on why, did I answer why you got into being passionate about conservation and this sort of stuff with what I said?
Yeah, I think you did pretty good. I just love areas like this, not even from a hunting perspective, but just from a looking for something to do on a weeknight and go take a hike with my fiance and the dog and get out and get some exercise and some fresh air and everything. And I think there's just a lot of areas around here that people that aren't necessarily involved in hunting can come out and enjoy the outdoors, and especially during COVID, like, these places are great places to go spend your time. And yeah, to your point, I think Colorado kind of got me into the public land thing, and just kind of getting more into the outdoors and doing more hiking in the last 5 years and finding places like this. Like, I love throwing on the pack and coming out and just taking a walk. So these places are great, and any conservancy, state property, like, that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Cool.
And I never knew anything about conservancies, anything, until I found the Nature Conservancy on X.
Right.
And then it kind of, I was like, what the hell is this? I turned the possible access layer on X just to see around the area, and I'm like, what the hell is that? So you start sniffing around, and I drive by the place, and the signs say no hunting, and it's like, well, okay, but how does this, what's going on here?
Yeah.
So you start sniffing, you start looking around and asking, and there is a lot of these conservancies have hunting programs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, and I don't know if that's kind of how you got on to BHA or how you kind of found out about that and how you ended up at that pint night. But I guess that kind of like steers us into that conversation about like your journey into hunting and then where Western New York Land Trust, where you guys fall as far as your thoughts on hunting and how that's a part of conservation.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, sure. So I'm kind of like the elusive adult onset hunter that a lot of hunting podcasts talk about trying to create. Like I think I'm kind of like that guy.
Yeah, you're our guy.
Yeah.
Actually, we've got a bunch of those guys now. COVID has done good for us on that side.
Yeah. So this will be my third season, hunting season, and I kind of got into it through a variety of ways. A lot of my buddies from college at College of Environmental Science and Forestry hunted. There's lots of people that hunt there. So like, I had buddies that hunted, just about all of them. I was always interested in it, but didn't grow up in a hunting family. So that's kind of one of the major barriers. It's just like a daunting thing to get into. But I kind of went the typical route of hearing Steven Rinella on Rogan once being like, oh, there's a guy that I can actually relate to that's, seems really educated, you can tell right away he's a conservationist, like knows his stuff. And he kind of opened my eyes to like some of the more, I don't know, like cerebral ends of hunting and the ethical discussions that I started listening to on his podcast and others, and just kind of seeing that, oh, there are people I can, relate to in this community. And then also just, as an environmentalist, I'm always conscious about trying to have as low of a footprint as possible. Eating what is in our area an overpopulated species is a very, like the kind of the locavore thing is kind of the jargon you hear, but trying to be more sustainable, have a lower carbon footprint. And then just loving the outdoors in general. Like my main passions are backpacking, getting into the backcountry, canoeing, anything outdoors. Previously, other than hunting, always done a little bit of fishing. Terrible fisherman is kind of a running joke with my buddies.
That makes three of us.
Yeah. I caught like six bass in my life, and I just take different angles of them. Everybody's like, man, that guy.
Yeah.
Like, no, not good.
It's kind of. Yeah, it's bad, the angling side of my life. But, so this will be my third year hunting. I got into it through all those things kind of came together. And then also as the stewardship director of the Western New York Land Conservancy, we have a deer management program. So me not being a hunter just didn't seem right to manage that. So there's kind of like all these roots came together. And I just loved it ever since. Got right into it. Had a great time first season and kind of still feel my way around. And Backcountry Hunters and Anglers was another group, kind of like I think Steve Vernell and Meteor kind of point people towards that, myself included. And that group in general is like, oh, here's a public lands advocacy group. There's not a huge difference between them and the Wilderness Society, so I realized there's like communities that I could get into in the hunting space, and it's been really fun trying to branch out a little bit more this year and get after the ducks a little bit, hopefully. But
do you have friends that do that? Or
nope, that I've just going out solo, taking my gun for a walk at the marsh like 10 times last year. No success, but I don't know. I just really enjoyed it, so that's my project for this year, other than deer. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
Where do you deer hunt? Do you hunt on the properties? Or?
Yeah. So I just kind of do our properties and some public land. That's really all. Didn't get out tons last year, but hunted a lot the first year. 2018 season, I think. But yeah, just our properties and then some public lands too.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like the older I get, the more I realize I get almost ADD with hunting properties. Like, here's another one. Here's another one. It's like you can only hunt a couple a year.
Yeah.
And like to your point, you hunt a couple here, you hunt some public property, and you really can't hunt that many places. And I just think there's room for everybody everywhere. If you're, to your point, you're just getting into hunting and you didn't really have a hard time finding public property to go walk around.
And like I was already a huge hiker and I love just staring at maps, so I knew every chunk of public land that I could think of, around here. I know them all pretty well and have been to most of them. So the hunting step for me was just kind of just a baby step of actually doing the hunting. I'm already outdoors.
You're already there. Just put a weapon in your hand.
Exactly. And start eating. So
yeah. That's, and to Danny's point, like once you start looking, you start realizing how many places there are, and like you can you only have, 3 months seems like a long season, but if you're hunting with just a gun, you've only got a month and a half.
Yeah.
And that time goes by real quick. And unless you're taking 3 weeks off, like if you're just a weekend warrior,
Yep.
like you can have 100 places to hunt, but the reality is of being able to figure out any of that well enough to actually kill a deer, it's like you need to put your time in where you can and focus on certain spots. I think over time, and you're young in your journey. Have you shot a deer yet or no?
Yeah. Yep.
You have?
Yep.
So, I mean, that's awesome to be only 3 years in and you've already killed your own deer. And for the most part, you're hunting all alone. You didn't have anybody really holding your hand to show you how to do it.
Yeah, I hunted with my buddy who kind of got into it with me, like been hunting the same amount of time.
That's awesome.
But yeah, and a couple of guys that are in our deer management program at this property actually helped me out too. And yeah, I was able to get one my first year, and yeah, it's been fortunate for sure.
What was that experience like for you?
It was kind of just surreal. Like it ended up happening in a way where I wasn't expecting to see anything. It was kind of just in a weird spot, and just things came together, and it was kind of processed it like the next day.
Yeah. Well, tell us a story, because I'm kind of curious, because I'm going to have the same conversation with my buddy Connor, and I was with him when he shot his first deer.
Yeah.
But like when you're in that moment, very rarely do you actually like process what actually just happened. And I remember my first deer I shot like it was yesterday, but like a lot of times you don't process those things in the moment. So I guess like how'd the whole thing go down, and what was it like for you?
Yeah, so basically I was in a stand that I just moved to kind of late, maybe like 2 o'clock-ish, had moved from the morning spots. And like the first weekend ever in a stand, I just did 2 11-hour sits, like back to back. It was just crazy.
It's hardcore, man.
Yeah, and then I did it the next weekend
too. Already.
Yeah. I did that the next weekend too. So I'm like however many hours deep, just like sitting in the same spots, kind of like not knowing how much I should move, things like that. I moved to this spot in the afternoon, and I had doe tags for this property, and had a doe come literally right under my stand from behind, and then just kind of like broadsiding at 30 yards. It was just like crazy.
She just came out of nowhere.
Yeah, she came out of nowhere, spooked by something, and was kind of just moving along directly on one of the guys who hunts here placed that stand perfectly, and she walked directly under me. Yeah. Yep. So yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, it was a crazy experience. It was just like, wow, this is really happening. There's a deer right under me.
Yeah. Was it a good clean kill, or?
Yeah, it was good. Definitely, like, I don't know who was aiming the gun, but I guess I did.
You just blacked out on it, right?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, and I think about this frequently. You can practice all you want, but the second that shot opportunities, I'm sure there's people out there that can say that they just, I was totally in control, but it's like, I don't care whether it's a buck or a doe. It's like muscle memory just takes over.
Yeah.
And even if like in your situation you hadn't done it 20 times, but you're just like, bam, what happened? And it's like, I hope I was aiming at the right spot.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I got to give one of the guys who hunts here, Steve, credit for he was like, you should sit there. And then he walked into a stand and had said that he thought he might push something, and
sure
it
enough.
just worked out. So
got
to shout him out for that one, because that was the veteran move there. So
yeah, he hooked you up.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a great experience. And, for you, coming from your background and being new into it, and you talked like Steve Ranella, kind of the cerebral side, which I think like our generation and maybe our father's generation, that age of hunter, maybe at this point they're thinking more along those lines. I can speak for my dad, but I don't think the general hunter could really like express to you the feelings that they had when they actually like pulled the trigger and shot that deer.
Yeah.
And, you talked about reflecting the next day, realizing what exactly happened.
Right.
But I think that's something that has kind of come out with a lot of the media that's out there now, with somebody like Steve Ranella, who's talking about like the emotional, or I guess emotional is the right word. Is there another word for it?
Yeah, like ethical, like, yeah.
Just the way you feel about what just went down.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a huge part. I think that's something that us as hunters, maybe like that have lived around it our whole lives, we have to understand that the new hunter coming in, that you may not fully have the same feelings or understandings of things that we do, because you might be coming into it at a different stage with a different perspective.
Yeah.
Like, I guess that kind of, I'm saying a lot of shit here, but does that make sense? Like, I feel like me seeing deer, like seeing like 6 deer get shot in a single day. I'm out doing deer drives, and it's just like bam, bam, bam. There's a bunch of deer getting shot. You're not thinking at all about what all went down. But as somebody that's new coming in, like, what's your perspective on that? I guess is like, are you saying, wow, like, does that seem necessary, or like, what's your emotional response to that?
Yeah, like I actually went to a friend's deer camp last season and did some big drives. For me, like being an ecologist, a science-minded person about all this stuff, the kind of like overpopulation thing is a big thing for me. So, eastern forests, 70 or 75% of them aren't regenerating adequately right now in the eastern United States. And the top 3 threats are climate change is 1, number 2, invasive species, number 3, deer overabundance. So to me, as like a science person, that kind of clears the ethical, or kind of the emotional side for me. I mean, that's definitely, it's separate, and I don't want to sound cold about that, but the necessity for deer management is so high that was one of the main things that spurred me into it, and things like deer drives and efficient ways of harvesting animals is, if it's done in a humane way, like humane kills, that seems perfectly fine to me.
And like, I don't know if ethical is the right word, because it is ethical. You're filling your tag, you're doing it legally, you're doing everything ethically.
Sure.
But maybe it's emotionally or morally.
Yeah.
But that's really cool to hear, like, from your background on the science side of it. Like, what we're doing is perfectly natural,
right?
And needed from the science side.
Yeah, and then there's also the kind of also somewhat sciencey is the whole carbon footprint thing I was talking about. Not necessarily carbon footprint, but just general living. Having a relationship with your food. All those things resonate with me a ton. So I kind of thought about all that stuff before I decided getting into hunting, and everything lined up and said, oh yeah, hunting is something you should be doing. For a bunch of those reasons. So yeah, emotionally I was pretty, and like I'm an adult, so like I was pretty prepared, and like pretty. I knew it was going to happen, and I was already I thought about it and was okay with it.
Yeah, death is something that you can wrap your head around.
Yeah, for sure. And like I wasn't a vegan before I started hunting, so essentially I don't have to go crazy with that. But like I was already eating meat. It's not like having to get my hands dirty to eat it is kind of, to me, a moral choice that I think is responsible.
And that's a totally different feeling for you. So it's super important to us is. We primarily don't buy, like I'm just looking at Danny, like we don't buy red meat. I mean, just about everything that we eat throughout the whole year is venison.
Right.
When it comes to red meat. And like that was that pretty special to you to have your own meat that you went out and
that was one of the most unique feelings, I think, of the whole experience, was just having that relationship with the thing you're eating. Like every time you go to eat, you're kind of remembering what happened that day, and all the work that you put in to get there, those 2 back-to-back weekends of 11 hours in the same spot, so that was one of the coolest things. Like, definitely, it almost like is like on steroids, the feeling you get when you're eating your own garden produce, so kind of similar. That was the only thing I guess I could compare it to, but it's definitely special, and definitely like made me respect hunting even more after that day. So
for sure.
Yeah, we talked about. I mean, we keep mentioning Ranella, but he does such a good job of field to table, just letting people know that you don't just have to kill it and grill it. There are so many different ways you can eat your venison or your whatever game you're killing. Like, there's so many more options and ways to use it instead of just kind of your regular ground burger and tacos and stuff like that. So that's huge to me. And I think, like, I grew up with hunting shows, watching people they pull the trigger and they're like, oh yeah, we got him, and the deer's running away, and it's like I watch shows like that now, and it's a little like, well, did you really get him, or are you just telling us you got him? And so like Ranella brings another side of like the emotional, like, okay, like gotta find it, like, was it a good hit, like
like he he pulls the trigger and knows he hit it back. It's like he's not faking that he did that. You know,
Right.
like you watch a lot of these hunting shows on TV, even still, you know, they'll shoot a deer with an arrow and the arrow goes in 4 inches and is just like wobbling around like this when the deer's running away.
Right.
And it's like, dude, that's not a good hit.
Yeah.
Like, you can celebrate all you want, but that's not a great hit.
Right.
And it, like, I think people are, and with guys like Steve Rinella or Randy Newberg, you know, like, they're the two that I really started watching a lot, like 4 or 5 years ago. And, like, they totally changed my perspective on outdoor television because they're so real. I mean, their hunts are not about the kill. It's about the journey through it. It's about how they got there. They may not get an animal on every hunt, and they show that. You know, it's not some highlight reel of bullets getting shot or arrows getting shot. You know?
That's my favorite episode of Meat Eater is that one. I forgot what he's hunting out in the like Sonoran Desert. I forgot what species that is, but it's just him talking while he's glassing.
Coos deer.
Coos deer, yeah. He just talks and
that
is glassing the entire
that?
time. Does not shoot anything.
Something triangle or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that's
like that. I remember watching that episode and being like, "Wow, this dude's super thoughtful," and like, yeah, it was just eye opening.
Have you seen the video that the movie they made, the Stars in the Sky?
No, I heard it just went on Netflix, so I'm planning on watching it. Yeah, it just
I
went on
paid
some
for that.
streaming service.
That's bullshit.
I know what I'm doing tonight.
Oh, it's really good.
Yeah,
I'm
really excited to watch that.
And it's fascinating because he has there's different views and perspectives on hunting on there, and that's what the movie is supposed to be, kind of thought-provoking about the importance and value of hunting in part of the conservation model.
Right.
And there's a vegan that he has on there, like a vegan philosopher, I think he is, and he's a really eccentric guy and his ideas, but he's like, you can tell that he's kind of battling with himself, like, I understand why, but I don't support the eating of meat. It's like, so there's just like this juxtaposition of like what's right or what's wrong. Like, that's like your perspective is, and I'm wondering if it's something that's shared by many people in your walk of life, because the science perspective, it's very hard to deny the science perspective.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's shared widely. I mean, it's a management decision, you know, just like a lot of other non-mammal and, you know, managing this meadow for certain species. Like, it's just kind of it's science, you know, it's a thing. It's kind of a objective thing you have to deal with. So yeah, I mean, I can't speak for other people, but I think generally wildlife managers, things like that, I mean, you can go measure the impacts of deer overabundance on this forest. You can do that, and people do it, and there's tons of studies. So it's kind of an unavoidable thing, and it's definitely uncomfortable for people, but yeah, I mean, that science perspective is definitely there, and it's a thing in the eastern United States for sure. I mean, it's different when you're in the Adirondacks when there's tons of intact forest, then their numbers are more at a natural level. But here, when we just create endless miles of fragmented edge habitat, which is where deer thrive, and we don't have historic natural predators, you know, we have to do something or lose the integrity of our forests, which already have many other threats to them than deer overabundance through invasive species and climate change and things like that. So it's that's definitely a big part of my perspective on the whole thing.
I would love to get your thoughts. So we go down to Pennsylvania every year, and Adirondack forest versus Pennsylvania forest are managed totally different.
Yeah.
And
microphone.
And we go down there, and they're logging all the time. Every year we go down there, they're logging forests, creating clear cuts, taking timber out of there. Versus the Adirondacks, there's almost no forestry management from that standpoint. And I guess I'd like to get your perspective on if maybe you think Pennsylvania's doing it right, or if maybe you said the Adirondacks are pretty sustainable the way they're going right now. So do you have any opinions on that?
Yeah, I mean, so they're just two totally different management. You know, forever wildlands in New York State are hardcore wilderness, no chainsaws, let alone motor vehicles, things like that. And yeah, when you're getting like, maybe, is that state land in PA or is it? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can speak myself personally. This is totally non-land trust affiliated, but
yeah, we can put a disclaimer in there.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm a wilderness.
Do you want to change your name? We could make your name different for this segment.
Yeah, two separate podcasts. But yeah, I mean, personally, I'm a wilderness guy. That's my whole passion in life, is getting out into true wilderness backpacking, canoeing into it, spending time in it. That's what I love. That's kind of like my, outside of conservation from the professional standpoint, that's my passion in life, is being in wilderness, experiencing it, and then protecting it. So if you ask me what every protected area should be, I'm going to say it should be forever wild wilderness. Obviously that can't necessarily happen. If you want to face the facts, eventually there's going to need to be more thought to it. But yeah, it's hard to say which one's right. But for me, as a wilderness advocate, I think we need much more wilderness than we have now. If you want to like dig into this topic, there's an awesome book by E.O. Wilson, who's a famous Harvard scientist. He's actually an entomologist, studies insects, but it's called Half Earth by E.O. Wilson. And if you ever want to get like a real easily read kind of view of the biosphere, which is all the ecosystems on Earth and where their status is, which is always, snippets of news articles and stuff, is very difficult for a normal person to get this kind of big overview perspective of things. That's an awesome book for it. So I highly recommend that. But that's kind of what I'm referring to is, the biosphere is in danger right now. And things like wilderness areas, there's just not enough of them. And there needs to be more, and there needs to be more continuity in corridors and things like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, they're two different landscapes in that fact and how they're being managed.
Mm-hmm.
But, like I see the benefits, and I also see from the animal side of it, you go to the Adirondacks, like we bear hunt up there,
mm-hmm.
and I mean, you'll go days without, you could hunt in there for 2 days and not even see a deer.
Yeah.
You can go 3 days without even seeing a pile of bear crab.
Right.
That there's game there, but they're so spread out per square mile that it's not the density for sure that we're not used to down here.
Mm-hmm.
But then you even go to Pennsylvania, the density down there that they've got their deer herd more in check now because they've started shooting more does.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a little bit more of a management plan trying to have a more like a better buck to doe ratio and not having so many deer. But you still see more deer down there for obvious reasons because of that edge cover you were talking about and because of all that managed timber. But that's like from the hunting perspective, we look at the Adirondacks and we say like, there's no deer because there's no food.
Right.
And there's no bear because there's no food. The only years that we have success bear hunting back in the wilderness area that we hunt, it's because there's good mass crop. There's good cherries.
Sure.
That's the only time we see bears.
Gotcha.
If there's no mass crop, if it's not a good cherry year, like you might as well go sit at the dumpster at Sugar Creek in town.
I was going to say, hunt the Old Forge dumpster, Marcy Dam. But.
Yeah, and like that's from the hunting perspective, like that's where I look at it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a scientific understanding of that. And like your passion for wilderness, it's more of a passion than maybe like I guess I don't understand the scientific side of that. Like I look at the woods in the Adirondacks and I'm like, man, that tree's just growing for 100 years and then tipping over dead. It's like, is there value in that tree? And if that tree's cut, does it encourage growth of new growth and of the ability for new things to live there?
Uh-huh.
Like that's like, I'm speaking for myself, but I really feel like that's probably the same way you feel.
Yeah, that's kind of the point I was getting at, I guess, in bringing up that subject is just kind of to that point is tree falls down and then it takes years for it to decay and
mm-hmm.
years for more trees to grow up around it where we do see what happens in Pennsylvania and the growth in those areas is amazing to see year in and year out after they clear cut it. And I completely understand your point. I think what the Adirondacks are great, I guess. Yeah. I just wanted to get the perspective of even what you think a perfect wilderness ecosystem should be. And
mm-hmm.
maybe that is the Adirondacks. And Pennsylvania is obviously maybe just managing for more of a wildlife as opposed to ecosystem that just regenerates on its own.
Yeah. So, yeah, like the Pennsylvania, like multi-use type national forests and stuff, they're managing for timber, wildlife, recreation, like all these other resources where a true wilderness place would be, the wilderness is the will of the land. So it's doing exactly what the land would do without human intervention. So, I mean, that's kind of what true wilderness is. And what that looks like is determined by site conditions, things like that. From like a general perspective, when you remove a tree, say, that fell over, that tree's full of elements, nutrients, nitrogen, carbon, things like that. Those all go in cycles. So when you remove a tree, say, from a certain chunk of forest, that tree's out of the carbon cycle of that area now. So there's impacts whenever you take anything out of an ecosystem, because everything's on a cycle and everything is interrelated, and we don't even know that in that book I mentioned, he goes into this, but we don't even know a lot about. There's still lots of frontiers in ecology. So it's like when you're managing like clear cutting, doing things for young forest, you're removing a lot of nutrients and disturbing those cycles. So I can't say what things should look like, but when I'm advocating for an area to be wilderness, that's wilderness is the will of the land. It's letting it go how it would be.
Without us here. Yeah.
Without us here. So where we're sitting now, it would be an old growth forest without us.
Yeah, without a lawnmower going around here once a week.
Yeah, right. And that's hopefully years, like 200 years from now, this piece of land we've protected will still be here, still going through natural succession and be an old growth forest someday.
Yeah. I don't know. I do really like this discussion because I didn't really think, I didn't prepare to have this discussion, but we're thinking about that, and then I think about the Adirondacks in the Old Forge area where we spend a lot of our time, where we have hunted and stuff like that. And you think about like the Moose River Plains and some of that environment there. I was going to say ecosystem, but I don't want to sound like I know what the hell I'm talking about. But like that area, like if you start, I guess to flip it to your end of it, if you start going in there and managing timber and cutting trees down, you have water that's moving in different ways. You have maybe marshes that are no longer marshes because they're drying up, or maybe there's more water in them. So like, I guess I didn't think about it that way, but in that perspective, that environment that is within the Adirondack Park, that is wilderness, that cannot be touched, cannot have timber cut. There's value in keeping it that way because there's so little of that.
Exactly. It's
anywhere.
The exception, not the rule, for sure.
I don't know. That's interesting. And this stuff does interest me a lot because, as I think about like what we're trying to do, you think on like the private land side of it with food plots, like we're trying to do away with tilling, and we're trying to do more like, what the hell they call it, like regenerative farming, where we're planting stuff in the spring, and we're crimping it in the late summer. We're planting stuff over the top of that. We're never turning the soil. We're letting all the nutrients stay in there. And I'm very young into learning about that stuff. But it's very interesting to me to learn about it and how you can basically, without manipulating the land, by turning it up, you can help the nutrients get returned and help that soil and that ground be healthier by doing things differently. So I don't know, I guess it makes you kind of think about things, and how what you're doing affects everything downstream in a literal way. Yeah. I mean, definitely good things to think about. I forgot how many species a day we lose, but there's the environmental crisis is a thing and needs to be addressed and thought about. So it's good for any groups, especially people who spend time outdoors, to dig into that stuff, I think. So yeah, cool. A couple things I want to make sure we touch on here. We wanted to talk a little bit about kind of the colliding of the backpacker and I'm going to use terms that might be triggering, but like the granola person and the hunter. I think that's what BHA is. There's a opportunity for collision between those two groups. But I also wanted to talk about like what some of the threats are that you see that are going on around our area here that people should be aware of, as far as environmental threats that we should be paying attention to, and what people can do to help with that. And then I guess lastly, what people could do to get involved with Western New York Land Conservancy. So I guess first I'd like to kind of talk a little bit about like the colliding between these two kind of like social groups that in a way have maybe like very different opinions on things. If you just want to look at like politics, I would say that this side over here might be very firm on their beliefs that they're right, and then I'm going to say, from most hunters are the Republicans or the conservatives that Second Amendment, don't take my stuff, you take take an inch, you take a mile type of thing.
Yeah.
But I think that there's a great middle ground to be had.
Totally.
With hunting and fishing and hiking, trail running.
Yeah.
I think those two groups can come together, and it can be a type of like a unifying thing that can say, you know what, you're not a bad person. Like maybe your ideas are good, and maybe we can exchange that. So
yeah.
What's your experience? Because you're kind of coming into that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have experience on both those sides, not politically, but I'm a huge backpacker primarily, but I also now hunt and love it, and have lots of friends who do both too. Yeah, I think there's a huge area in the middle. Like for me, backcountry hunters and anglers, like my big thing is the backcountry, and I'm just getting into hunting. And I suck at angling, like I said. But
that's why they put that last, because they realize that most of us suck at it.
But yeah, like if we're out in the backcountry of Colorado, and I just did a 20-mile day backpacking, and we're 2 basins over and hauled an animal out. Like you and I have a lot in common. We just went through a total sufferfest that not a lot of people who don't do those two activities that we just did know anything about. So there's tons of common ground between those two groups, and there's not a lot of conflict with mountain bikers, hikers, things like that, and somebody backcountry hunting, not just backcountry hunting, but using public lands. Like, I think we all win as outdoors people. Like, I think we're all outdoors people, and there's definitely common ground to be had. And like the kind of the political divide's unfortunate, but yeah, like for me, I definitely am a huge backcountry guy, but now I'm into hunting, and that I think BHA fills that void really nicely, and I think that's why it's exploding, because I think there's more people than you think, than the stereotypical, hiker trash type person and the hard whitetail hunter.
Yeah, because those two groups of people, where we meet in the middle is that we all care so much about what we're sitting in the middle of right now.
Yeah.
Like, we all care about this. We care about it for maybe a little bit different reason than a backpacker or a hiker does.
Right.
But at the end of the day, we all want this to stay exactly the same way it is. So, like, if you can, and I think that's where BHA has created this, like, safe space for all of us snowflakes.
Yeah.
Because we can all, like, get together and drink a beer, and we're like,
yeah, and just talk about the stuff we love.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not worry about, right.
So it's common ground. And I think in this day and age, like, this last, like, 5 months has just been such a social experiment between everything. Like, you don't know whether you can go see your friends. You don't know whether you can say anything, or you're going to be called a racist, or are you able to, and it's like, at the end of the day, like, most people are good, and we all, like, care about things, and we want stuff to be, saved and protected, and everybody should be cared for.
Yeah.
It's just like, I just see hunting has become such a galvanizing thing for me.
Yeah.
Where it creates that opportunity for me to see things and then kind of open up the conversation. Now, you're one of us. You're a hunter.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, I've heard this talked about, but, like, trailhead diplomacy, it's kind of like a little term. But when you're hiking, if you're hunting public land and you come across a hiker, be friendly.
Mm-hmm.
Be generous and move over and let them pass you on the trail. Don't be some, knuckle dragging grunt that's like, putting out a bad front for hunters, because all you got to do is smile and say hello, and that might start a conversation that could lead to somebody looking at all of us completely differently.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think it was interesting for me going from just like an outdoor recreation person to a hunter, just the way that you look at and interact with the woods as a hunter was totally a new experience and super eye-opening, and like gave me a lot of respect for hunters, just the way that the relationship you have with like these target species and like how you read the landscape from that context is totally, I think anyone who likes to do things outdoors would love to just walk with a good hunter through the woods, just to like talk and see how they view the woods. It's really interesting, and I think there's kind of just like a primal thing in everybody that's like, wow, that's super cool that you are able to look at this thing in this way, where a lot of times backpacking, hiking, you're on literally a linear path, and you're kind of just getting from point A to point B, where hunting gives you some of that presence in the woods that I think sometimes I crave more so than just kind of trudging out miles. So yeah, I think like both groups can feed off each other a ton, and I think BHA is definitely providing some of that space to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
It's so interesting that you say that because I would love to just like walk through the woods and pick your brain on like
Yeah.
the wildlife side of things and just trees and like everything. Like
Yeah.
There's so much to learn from that point of view for a hunter or just somebody that's hiking that like I would love to just get out and absorb as much as I could from that angle of things. And I'm sure there's a ton of people out there that would love to do the same probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you can actually do things with people again, and have groups like that's something I would have liked to have done this summer and this past spring was do like little get-togethers and say, hey, if anybody wants to meet up at this public land piece and let's go for a hike together and do some shed hunting and look for some deer sign. you know?
Yeah.
And I think people would like doing that. Like,
Yeah.
I know I like going to do that. So, hey, why don't you come here and meet me?
Yeah.
And we'll do it. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Totally.
And I think that was where I was trying to get with that. We were talking about like the quantity of deer and how you felt about that. Like if somebody was to go out, a group of guys went and shoot 6 deer. But I guess what I was trying to get to there, you almost kind of answered, is that you like, for you, it isn't like you went those 2 days of sitting 11 hours straight in the stand.
Mm-hmm.
And like sounds like you really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I mean,
like it wasn't like
yeah,
you would have
type 2
liked
fun,
to have.
but yeah.
After a while, that's
Yeah.
not fun.
Right.
But like you look back on that. And
No,
that,
I
that
did.
was a good time. It didn't just because you didn't kill something didn't mean it wasn't a good time spent in the woods.
No, I would have been doing that anyway, just not in the context of hunting. Maybe not sitting still for 11 hours, but
Yeah.
I'd be in the woods anyway. So
Right.
yeah, I really enjoyed it.
So what do you think are some of the things that you guys are watching, or that you as somebody who's paying attention to the environment, what's going on around Western New York here that we're not even just Western New York, but in the region?
Yeah, I mean, so just like from our organization perspective, we're always just right now we're working on a project called the College Lodge, which is this really cool parcel of land in Chautauqua County, kind of outside of Fredonia, that has old growth forest on it. So that's really, really cool. It's this big property. There's we've been finding new species of orchids there like all the time. Really like unique, interesting plant communities. A beautiful property, patches of old growth forest. So really special. So that's kind of our project right now. We're actually trying to meet a fundraising goal by December 31st for that. So if anybody listening to this wants to check it out or get involved, check out the website and contact us. But yeah, it's a really special property. It's actually on the divide between the St. Lawrence and the Mississippi basin. So half the property drains to the St. Lawrence and out into the Atlantic. The other half drains. It's not right down the middle, but there's a point on the property where certain water drains to the Mississippi and the Gulf, and certain water on that property drains to the St. Lawrence and the Atlantic. But yeah, just a beautiful property. So that's the Land Conservancy's big project right now.
How the hell do you know that? How do you know where the water goes? I've always
watershed science. I'm not a hydrologist, but
good answer. Good answer. That's like I drive.
It flows downhill, right?
Yeah, exactly. I drive I think it's on 20, where there's a point where it says the watershed goes to Lake Ontario, and it says the watershed goes to Lake Erie.
Yeah.
I think it's like around. I don't know where that is. If it's like Leroy, Perry area somewhere in there.
Yeah, I've seen
not
signs
Perry,
like that all over.
further west, but. Yeah, I always wonder that. I'm like, how the hell did they figure that out?
Yeah,
Did they put they put a bobber in the water and let it float and see where it ends up?
Yeah, I can't answer that one, but
that's nuts.
I trust them.
Some stream on the property must drain south into the Allegheny and then
Allegheny,
Mississippi, and
Allegheny.
then part of it drains into Lake Erie, I would imagine.
Yeah, Lake Erie, St. Lawrence, Atlantic. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Northern Atlantic. Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, it's a really special property. So check that out if you're interested, and that's our big fee property project right now. So, yeah.
As far as invasives, is there anything that you guys are seeing that's really like becoming a problem here?
I mean, yeah. So like it's called Japanese stiltgrass. That's definitely there's an organization in our region called Western New York Prism, which is a partnership for regional invasive species management. And they actually identified some in the Hunters Creek Gorge that they're going to be taking out, but that's kind of a new, like what they call an early detection species, which they prioritize. If you can get it out now, then it actually won't spread. There's a lot of invasives you'll see around here and all over Western New York that are just, they're at such a number where you're not going to win the battle, but they can be managed. Mugwort, multiflora rose, honeysuckle, common buckthorn, glossy buckthorn. These things you'd see if you don't know those species. They're all around. You can probably see one right now. Yeah. So, but yeah, there's organizations who focus on that, like Prism, and they do an awesome job. So yeah, like stiltgrass is one of many. There's all kinds of stuff going on. If you want to talk about New York in general, there's a spotted lanternfly, which was found in, I think, eastern PA, which targets a lot of different tree species, including walnuts and also vineyards. So that's going on. You can go to the DC website if you want to read about that. That's one that's on the radar of a lot of people. There's lots of forest pests. Hemlock woolly adelgid's a really concerning one that hasn't moved fully into our region yet. A lot of people have heard of emerald ash borer, which all ash trees in Western New York are dead or dying from.
Right.
Hemlock woolly adelgid is, different disease, but it's moving towards us, and if we try to be vigilant about observing that when it pops up and taking care of it. So there's lots of cool trainings if people want to get involved with invasive species management. Prism and other organizations will put on trainings for identifying these different invasives, and you can keep an eye on your own property or go out and volunteer places like our properties.
Yeah.
Just to survey and stuff. So.
Yeah. And it's over in the Finger Lakes. They're having a bad run of it right now. Is it the gypsy moth?
Yes.
I
was just out there.
That is a bad deal, man.
Yeah.
And, like you haven't probably been out that way.
No,
much.
this is the first I heard of it.
So you can probably explain it better than I can, but holy hell, is it wreaking havoc?
Yeah,
through the valleys over there.
I actually was just there and saw the populations. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I've never seen that before. So, gypsy, they're having a huge year, and it's crazy. That tree is just spotted with the egg masses and stuff. So.
Where were you?
I was in Finger Lakes National Forest, actually.
Okay.
It's funny that exists, like this little patch of federal national forest, but it's a cool place.
I've never been over there.
Yeah, it was cool.
Good things.
Yeah, found some chanterelles and just hung out at just like a little car camp spot there. So
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I learned about the gypsy moth. I was actually staying at a cottage on Canisius Lake for a summer vacation for a few days, and the neighbor was like, I was watching her. She was outside every morning, like walking around, like right on the property line. And these cottages are close. Yeah. She's got a mason jar, and she's like walking around the trees. I'm like, what is this lady doing? So we finally are getting ready to leave, and I was packing up the truck, and she was out there. So I went over and asked her. I'm like, what are you doing? And she goes like, oh, I'm like addicted to this. I'm like killing all these gypsy moths. I'm like, what are you? So she's explaining it to me, and then the following week, she was keeping her trees, like looking up, her trees weren't in too bad a shape. But I was down like where Bristol Mountain is, that valley there. I drove from basically from 5 and 20 down to Naples on I don't know if that's County Road 64 or 60 something, 65 maybe. And that whole valley, like you look up on the side hills and like there's just like trees with no leaves on them.
Yeah.
And it's all oak through there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is that? So I got down to Naples at the bus garage where I was talking to the guys there, and he's like, yeah, he goes, that's that moth is like wreaking havoc this year.
Yeah.
Along some of the lakes and the valleys near them. They're just pounding them.
Yeah.
So the piece of property I was on Sunday, Nature Conservancy piece of property I was on, I was doing a little volunteer work and cleaning up some trails and picking up garbage.
Cool.
And I was just seeing, I mean, they're, like you were saying, they're like their pods or their stuff. I mean, they were all over the trees. And I'm like, holy shit, like they're here and our camp is not far away. So I haven't really paid close attention there. I haven't been at camp much, but like it's something I don't think a lot of people know about. And you could have your property, your 100 acres like we have, and having, if you're not paying attention to this stuff, you have no idea that there's something just eating away at your trees and killing them. Like oak is something that we as hunters, like, we value that tree big time. So, I mean, is there anything you can really do, or?
I don't know specifics on gypsy moth. I haven't looked into them in a while, but there's definitely, like, look at your local regional invasive species management group or just DEC, and they'll have all kinds of information on what you can't do or what works and doesn't. So it's an easy thing to look up. Just Google quick and check out your kind of local government stuff.
Yeah. So you're just deferring, like you're trying not to really get in the middle of it.
Well, I'm not. I'm not credible to speak to that specific issue. entomologist.
Yeah. Are we talking to Josh again? Are you back? Is this real Josh? Yeah. No, it's when you open your eyes at this stuff, there's so much going on.
Yeah, I mean, like I could barely even tell you. I didn't even know which ones to pick to tell you what.
Yeah.
You know, like almost every tree in our northern hardwood forest, which is the main forest type in our region, and has some kind of looming threat that's pretty scary. So
yeah,
all the more reason to support your local land trust.
Yeah, you got to tune in and educate yourself. You know, if you're not paying attention to it,
yeah,
like that, something can be gone.
Yeah,
and you can't regenerate a woods full of trees overnight. You know?
Like, and you know, you can see what happened with emerald ash borer. It's a real thing that happens. And
yeah, well, you go out to talk about going to Colorado. You go out to Colorado and drive down I-70, and it's just dead pine trees everywhere.
Yep.
And it's frustrating.
Yeah.
And they're, you know, like I was talking with Gary on that podcast we did last week. We were talking about the wildfires, and it's tough. Like, what's your thoughts on fire? Like, I almost feel like the fires probably in some of those situations might be a good thing to get some of those dead trees with some of the beetles that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how what the interaction is with beetle kill and fire, but like generally the Western fire problem is years of suppressing forest fires. Now there's so much what they call ladder fuel in the understory that the fires become catastrophic instead of the natural fire cycles of the West. A lot of the plants are adapted to that, and it kind of smolders along the ground. It doesn't get into the crown, but you're having these catastrophic crown fires. So that's like the gist of the Western fire problem. There's people who that's their career is fire management and stuff, but yeah, I don't know what the interaction's like with a beetle kill stand. That'd be interesting to look into.
Yeah. I think they were explaining to me, like, getting back to the gypsy moths, that they were talking that once they have decimated an area, they essentially just die off and move on. Like, somehow their population just moves on.
Yeah, like once the trees are dead, that's
we've done our job. Let's get the hell out of here.
Exactly.
On to the next.
Yeah.
Bastards.
Yeah.
I can't get any tags for them either. Nuisance tags.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah. You brought a notebook. Did you have anything you wanted to?
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to make sure I had my stats accurate if you asked me anything.
Oh,
yeah, no, I think I mentioned our College Lodge project, which is our big thing right now.
How far off are you of your goal?
I'm not I'd have to
Ooh,
look
you didn't
into
have that stat
didn't have that
down.
written down, but we're moving towards it. Like I said, December 31st is this $200,000 match challenge that we're trying to do to get that super unique property protected. So we also have our annual gala on September 16th. It's going to be online this year, but there's a lot of cool auction items you can check out starting September 2nd if you register for it, and all kinds of cool like trips with staff members and all kinds of stuff. That's just one thing I thought of, but yeah, so Land Conservancy Gala on September 16th, and you can always check out our website, WNYLC.org is the Land Conservancy's website, and you can join, donate, check things out, where to hike, and just get to know us more. So, yeah, that's what I had written down.
Danny, you got anything else for him?
Yeah, got a couple questions. Quickies.
Go ahead.
What's your bino harness of choice up there?
Up where?
Is that
up there?
bino
Oh, that's
harness?
FHF.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that I use that.
like
I got
that.
that more for work than hunting almost, because I monitor all our properties once a year, and that thing's awesome for carrying 42.
I'll have to take a look at that before we go, because I've never seen one in person. I've seen pictures, but I haven't actually seen one.
Sharp.
I got it because it's kind of like the most low profile one. It's just like the foliage. It's not too tactical looking for when I'm walking up to landowners.
Right.
Yeah, I really like that thing. I started with one of the Alaska Guide Creations ones, and just a little too bulky. They're awesome, but they're
If you're going on a backcountry hunt where you need to put half your backpack in a bino harness, that's awesome.
Yeah. I actually took it on a big canoe trip, and it was awesome for that. Like in Algonquin Park up in Canada, and the AGC one was awesome. But for everyday use, that I definitely recommend that FHF harness.
Yeah. What are you running for binos?
Just Vortex Diamondback 8x42s.
That's what I got.
I love them.
Do you have the HDs, or do you have the? Just
no,
the
mine were the year I bought them was non-HD, but I really like those. They're like weight to. Yeah, optics is really cool.
Are yours the Diamondback HDs?
Yeah.
Do you like them?
Yeah,
I like them a lot. 10x50s, 8x50s.
Those are 10x50. They might even be 12s.
12 by
I think they're
50s.
12 by 50s.
Yeah.
They're a little bit bigger.
12. I got those for I got the 12s for Colorado, and I keep them in the truck just for spotting and
cool.
stuff. And I have 10 by 42 loopholes that I think I'm returning. I popped them out the other day, and like the eyepieces were like dry rotting already. I've only had them for like 3 years, so I was a little disappointed at that.
Yeah.
So I hope they have a good return.
That's why you
policy.
get the. Well, I think they have a lifetime warranty.
Yeah,
I think
they do too.
Yeah, my girlfriend got the HD 10 by 42s, and I was going side by side. Didn't notice a huge difference, but other than the power. But
yeah, I was wondering about whether it'd be worth upgrading or not to the
me too.
HDs because I have them.
I have a sickness with that. With the new model comes out.
Freaking Cabelas with their trade-in program. I'm glad today's the last day, and I can't do nothing about it because.
Yeah, I'm a giant gearhead, so diving into hunting on top of the other outdoor things hasn't been. It's been tough because I like gear.
Oh, it's endless.
So, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You hunt with your Solomons or leather boots or rubber
I
boots?
hunted in I hunted in just like a pair of winter. I started out in Solomons and just like hiking pants and long johns, and got bibs and winter boots for this year because those 11-hour sits and.
Oh Jesus! You were trying to do that in.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, I didn't. What you don't really realize coming from more like active sports is how insanely cold you get when you don't move. Like I'd never sat still for that long in the cold, and it was just eye-opening. So.
Yeah, I even get cold on warm days, like 40, 50. I'm still getting cold sitting there.
When
for
you
a
don't
long
move,
period of
it's
time.
crazy. That was like shocking to me how cold I got. I couldn't believe it.
If you like wearing your hikers, you should try a pair of the Arctic Shield makes them. I think there's some other companies that make them, but the little boot covers. They roll up real small, but they're basically just a little bit. They're just enough to insulate just to hold some heat in and insulate you from your tree stand or from the ground.
Nice.
But I've just got like Danny's. He asked that question because that's a hot thing with all of us. Danny loves his leather boots and gaiters. That's his thing, and I can't disagree. I think it's a great go-to for all season. But if you add, it's really tough when you're going to stop and sit for a while without having something to insulate your feet if you're just running a non-insulated boot. So check those out. They're real. I mean, for what they cost, they're $40.
Yeah,
and you can take your hikers that you're comfortable in, walking 5 miles. And
really
you're not
cool.
sweating your ass off.
Yeah.
And you throw those on and your feet will stay pretty comfortable. Throw some hand warmers in there.
Nice. Yeah, I looked in the electric socks and I was like, it doesn't seem like a thing.
Everybody's been there. Everybody's tried the electric socks.
That's like that's your gut reaction when you just are so cold that first time that you get that cold. That's cool. That's good advice. I'll definitely check those.
Yep. Danny, what else?
That's all the gear I got.
That's
for
it.
Now. I mean, I could go on for hours.
Yeah,
we could do a whole separate.
You guys want to do a gear podcast? Let me know.
Well, we're planning on doing a podcast with my brother-in-law and his buddy Danny. Danny lives up in the city. I think he's in like Tonawanda, maybe North Buffalo somewhere. But he's brand new to hunting. AJ's only been hunting for 4 years, and we've had some feedback from listeners that. You know, like we get on and we talk, and like when I get on with Brian in Dallas, and we get to, like we've all been around hunting our entire lives. Mm-hmm. So it's like we're talking at like just like you, if you know we're trying to sit here and have a conversation with you about stuff that you do professionally. Mm-hmm. It's like you're so far over my head. I'm full of shit trying to relate with you. But we've had some feedback that people would like to have like a round table of what are some of the things that like the new hunter is looking like. What don't you know? We don't know what you don't know. We've been following our fathers around since we were old enough to go out with them. Yeah. So, like, we just know stuff that we don't know we know. Right. So, we're going to try to do a podcast like that.
Cool. That would be
before season
enormously
starts.
useful. Yeah.
I think so, too.
Yeah, totally. That's a great idea. I feel like I haven't seen that really either or heard that on some of the hunting podcasts I listen to.
Because it doesn't sell anything. That's why. I don't know. That's just, you don't hear a lot of that. Like, you don't hear a lot of new hunters' perspective. Yeah. And that's why I was kind of digging at you about, like, what your feelings were on your first deer because I don't know. Yeah. Like, and especially from a 30-something-year-old guy. Like, you don't hear a lot of that.
Yeah, you know? Right. 26, careful.
26? It's the beard. If you shave that beard.
Yeah, quarantine hair too, man.
Holy shit. If you were a girl, I would have just, you'd never look at me again. Last thing, and then we're going to let you go. Since you already told us your first deer story, but it wasn't a buck story. We usually do like a first story, but we don't have that. So how about like you said you love doing like wilderness trips. What was your favorite wilderness trip you've done to this point?
Oh man. Shoot. I really liked that Algonquin canoe trip. My bunch of my buddies from college. We try to do like a boys trip every year, and that was our 2018 trip. And yeah, that was just amazing. It was we rented Kevlar canoes from the main outfitter there and just did like a 70, 80 mile paddle trip and just got deep into the Canadian wilderness, just going lake to lake, portage to portage. We ended up biting off the biggest portage in Algonquin the first day, like without knowing. It was like a 3.5 mile portage.
Oh my God.
So it was just like, it was a great combination of suffering and then also just like enjoying being out on the water. We got rained on a lot, but I wasn't, but my friends were catching brookies and we were eating brookies, and it was just an awesome time. Yeah, that was pretty hardcore wilderness there. Had some good trips into Utah and Colorado. Did a fun trip to the Smokies with the same crew. So, but yeah, wilderness wise, I really liked that canoe style trip. You can take a little extra weight, just like enjoy yourself and get pretty deep with a nice canoe. They can really cruise. So yeah, that was a really, really cool trip. Highly recommend for especially Buffalo area folks. It's the same as driving to the Adirondacks to a lot of these Canadian parks. Yeah. So, like 4 hours.
To get to Algonquin?
Yeah, to get to southern Algonquin. I want to do like the northern end is a lot more remote. You drive up and around, which takes another couple hours, but yeah, and there's a bunch of other really cool parks up in Canada. Killarney, I've always wanted to go to. Bruce Peninsula.
Have you been to the Boundary Waters or no?
That's our next year's trip. This year we're going to Washington. Hope maybe.
DC?
Probably won't happen.
No.
Go
up to
Olympic
Potomac?
National Park. Olympic and North Cascade. So that's on the docket for this year. If it happens, it's kind of just this goal I've been using to like get in shape, and I know it's probably not going to happen. But
yeah, hey, something to shoot for.
Yeah, Boundary Waters next year. So I'm hoping to. Always wanted to get my eyes on that. Read a couple books about it this year, and seems like a really crazy place, similar to kind of what we have in Canada and the Adirondacks. But
yeah, what did you see any crazy wildlife stuff or anything when you were in Algonquin?
We didn't get any moose or wolves, which are like the big attractions up there.
Damn it, we didn't even get into wolves. I want to talk wolves with you. I got time. I got 40 minutes.
I got time.
Okay. Son of a bitch. I wanted to talk wolves. Okay, but finish you didn't see any of that stuff up there.
We're like a group of 7 guys. We're just not quiet enough to see moose or wolves. Apparently a wolf like walked through the outfitter's parking lot like 2 hours after we left.
Of course.
So, but catching brookies the whole time, and the loon action up there is crazy. Like I love loons just for the soundscape, and the amount of the increase in loons is insane when you go that far north compared to just like the Adirondacks. That was kind of startling, and super awesome to just have them going all night.
Yeah, they are awesome.
Yeah.
You ever watch Jim Baird on YouTube?
Yes.
I've just got into him recently.
I watched
his
him win
trips are
alone with
awesome.
his brother, and then I realized he has that YouTube channel weeks ago. It's funny you say that.
Yeah. I literally watched a 4.5 hour video of this guy just canoeing in Alaska.
Yep.
Like over.
I just watched his Yukon trip.
It's good stuff before bed, but
yeah,
like, it's like
4 hour.
He's enjoyable. He's kind of fun. He's like a funny.
Kind of like a doofy, like Canadian dude. They were funny on the show alone that they won, just like eating. I forgot what they call those little sea creatures, just off the rocks. They just survive for like 80 days.
Yeah, I thought I was
Limpets,
going to say 90 days just alone in the wilderness, surviving by themselves with nothing.
Yeah,
Jesus.
It's funny because he's not like a super fit guy or anything. He's just like, just goes out there and does crazy stuff no one would do. So
yeah, wolves. What's your? So tell us. You said you love wolves. I want to know.
Yeah, I just like wolves. I don't want to. Again, this is just me personally talking, but yeah, I don't know. What do you want? What do you want to talk about?
I'm just curious. Like wolves, so from right now, the hot topic on wolves is Colorado.
Okay.
And I don't know if you're familiar with that situation.
I mean, I'm familiar with like the whole Yellowstone thing is like a very studied kind of like classic wilderness dilemma.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly with Colorado. I mean, I just like wolves because I've always liked them just aesthetically and their lifestyle, but they also are kind of a symbol of wilderness, kind of like a wolverine is, just because they need X amount of intact, pristine habitat to exist.
Right.
So if you're in an area with wolves, you know you're in a really pristine wilderness area, which is cool.
So I think, and now that we're talking, I guess I probably know where you stand on this. So like with Colorado, the CPW, the scientific side of it, said that they don't want to physically reintroduce wolves because it's not going to fit scientifically. It's not needed. There's already a little bit of a presence of a wolf pack that's coming down from Wyoming.
Okay, and they got mountain lions.
And they have mountain lions in Colorado. They have a overabundance of black bears to the point where they're just giving.
Really?
They're just giving tags away, like they're. I mean, not giving them away physically, but like they need bears killed.
Right.
So they have a fairly good footprint of predators.
Yeah.
In Colorado.
That's different than here.
Yeah. And then you throw, so CPW said no, we don't need to reintroduce, and I may have the facts somewhat a little bit wrong, but they, from the scientific perspective, said we do not need to reintroduce. There's already a little bit of a natural reintroduction happening. Let nature take its course. If that pack grows on their own, let it happen that way. Instead, there's been a public push from the Eastern Front, from the Front Range, from the Denver and Boulder communities. There's been a big push to reintroduce wolves because people want everything back to the way it was. They want nature. They want the right things to be. They want the things to be there that used to be there. Is their perspective on things, but not understanding what the ecosystem has become and how much it's changed over the last 20, 30, 40, 100 years.
Yeah.
It's not the same in those mountains as it was when wolves used to roam free and they had a mobile population of wolves. So it's, from the science perspective, like, that's what kind of frustrates me, is that people are, and Gary said it on the discussion last week, like, people are making these decisions based on emotions because they love to hear a wolf howl. Yeah. And they think it'd be cool to see him, but is it the right thing for the environment to bring that predator back into that landscape? They have to kill to survive. So they're going to kill whatever they need to survive, whether that's little chihuahua or if it's a cow elk. Like, they're going to kill whatever they need to survive. And you've already got a huge footprint of predators. So I don't know. Like, that's the wolf discussion right now to me, is like, what's necessary.
Yeah, that's super interesting. It's like each state has their own kind of thing going on. Like, I know there was a lot going on in Oregon. I just remember listening to a few podcasts about Oregon wolf management and just some of like the conflicts that like the wildlife people have when they have to remove certain wolves and stuff who are super successful. But yeah, I don't know much about that Colorado situation, but it sounds like all predator reintroduction scenarios where it's extremely complicated and lots of stakeholders and
emotional, controversial.
Sure.
It's like, from your perspective as somebody who's educated in this, like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like, you like wolves, but you also, like, do you stand on kind of the side of the thought process of like, it needs to make scientific sense or sense for the environment to do something?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely back like science-based management is what you'd call it.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
So yeah, like, I don't know, I can't say for that situation where I'd stand because I don't know enough about it. Yeah. But yeah, like, science-based management is what, that's how you that's how you do it.
And that's and like, that's what New York State has done with, that's what they've done with bears. You know, what in our lifetime we've seen bears come into this area and now be able to hunt them. When we were kids, when we were in grade school, if you saw a bear, you saw a unicorn. Yeah. And to think that we in our lives we'd be able to hunt them, let alone like see them frequently. Yeah. And then now it's a thing. So like, and that's science-based management. There's enough of a population where we need to manage them in a sustainable number. If we kill a whole bunch one year, they might make it so that you can't hunt in those areas next year for them. And they're doing the same thing with deer. Yeah. They're allotting tags to get stuff out. So it's all science-based. And
like, objectives matter too. Like, using the science to, have a goal of, like, if your goal is to restore like pristine Rocky Mountain habitat to X year before, European settlers or whatever, then maybe the science-based management route would be to reintroduce wolves. Like, it's all that stuff matters. So yeah, it's super. I don't know. It's a cool thing to follow, like, these predator reintroduction things, and it's really, really interesting stuff.
It is.
Yeah.
And a lot of stuff just is, if you're not paying attention to it, goes back to what we were talking about earlier. If you're not paying attention to it, stuff just like happens and you had no involvement and no knowledge of it. So pay attention to that stuff. There's a lot going on. No doubt.
Oh yeah. Save the biosphere.
Save the biosphere. What was the name of that book again?
Half Earth by E.O. Wilson.
Half Earth. Check that out.
Yeah. It's good. It's short. It's not long, but it's a really good kind of really brilliant scientist giving a very like kind of layman's terms description of like big picture environmental stuff. It's really cool.
Have you read the book or heard of the book Bad Luck Way?
No.
I think it's Bryce Andrews, I think, is the author. I really like that book. My brother-in-law gave it to me. It's about wolves, and it's written by a guy, Bryce Andrews. He's actually the author, but he was a ranch hand. So I really like that book because I was anticipating, I have my thoughts from what the people that I listen to about wolves. But then I read the book, and you think the book is going in this direction, but then it brings you back to where this guy really felt like the heart of the wolf, and that it was important to have them there. They had a place on the landscape.
Yeah.
And that, these big ranches and all the cattle, like they were the ones that were disturbing the natural way.
Oh, yeah.
It's not natural to have 4,000 cattle roaming all over this place,
No.
Like we experienced that last year when we were out in Colorado hunting on some national forests, and like this area was just it was devastated by cattle grazing.
Yeah.
But it's such a challenge because there's money in that, and the funding from the grazing rights goes to help pay for conservation things and stuff that's going on with those public lands.
Yeah.
But it's like you see just the undergrowth, the trails are pounded down, cow shit everywhere. It's just like
eroding soil. Yeah.
Doesn't seem right. So I don't know. It's like you can see all sides of it when you start looking at it.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's a lot to wrap your head around. Like that's why I like that book. That half Earth theory is basically protecting. If we can protect half of Earth's natural area or resources, basically land area, I guess would be a good way to say it. Protecting half of Earth's land area would allow for 85+% of species to continue to exist. If we don't, and how that looks can vary, but if we don't, then we continue this massive, basically we're in the 6th extinction. I don't know if you've ever heard that term, but there's been several extinctions throughout the history of the planet. We're on a very steep one right now.
It's COVID.
Yeah. Yeah, it plays right into it. But anyways, we're on that curve right now, and the only way, that's his proposal to correct it, but he also kind of goes into this other stuff. So, yeah.
Very interesting stuff. Check that book out. You like that? I'll check out yours if you check out mine.
Absolutely.
And then he's written a couple other ones too. Grizzly bear one. I'm working on right now, which is interesting. So, yeah, good stuff. We could sit here and shoot the shit all day. Any other controversial things that I can try to make
just
juicy?
get me in trouble.
No, it's been fun chatting with you. I definitely, I appreciate what you guys are doing with Western New York Land Conservancy. And I encourage people, if it's something that you care about and you want to get involved with, even if it's a small donation to you guys on a yearly basis, or just when they got something going on, And it could be a donation of time too. I'm sure you guys are looking for volunteers to do different things.
Yeah, we've got volunteers doing all kinds of stuff. Yeah, we'd really appreciate it. All our projects are community. We do projects that people want to get done. We protect special places, so without people's help, they wouldn't get done. So that's kind of the cool thing. Is it's not just us determining these things. The community also gets behind the stuff that we protect. So, always looking to spread the word, and appreciate having me on.
It's good shit, man. Anything, Danny?
Check out the gala.
You gotta turn your mic on.
Check out the gala. It's on the website next week.
Yeah, so we have the gala's on the 16th. You can check it out on the website. You can email us. Yeah, there's an auction starting on the 2nd. Check that out. Lots of cool stuff. And you can always become a member. And then College Lodge Forest, check that out too. Where, like I said, we have that $200,000 goal to meet by December. Really cool place. You can go check it out, read about it. Yeah.
Sounds good, man.
All right.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, we're checking out. You sure you got anything else, Danny? You didn't say a whole lot. You let me talk too much.
It's pretty easy to let you talk too much.
It's a good place to wrap it.
I hope you enjoyed this discussion. If you did, please give us a rating and also subscribe to the podcast. That would help us out greatly as we continue to grow this thing. And head on over to Western New York Land Conservancy, either their website or check them out on social media. Follow along with them. As Josh mentioned, they have their big fundraiser going on right now to raise some money to purchase some property down at the College Lodge. And also they have their annual gala coming up here, and they have an online auction that they're doing currently on their website. So check that out. I was on there yesterday. They got some cool, if you're into fishing, they've got some cool opportunities to bid on some like fishing charters. So that's kind of a cool, interesting thing to me. So I'll be taking a look at that over the next week here, see where that goes, and if it's something I want to throw my name in the hat on. And also, if you want to support this podcast, and I see a bunch of you are, and I really appreciate it, head on over to, we have these links called, they're affiliate links. But if you head over to our profile on Instagram or Facebook and use the link tree in our bio, it'll take you to another website, and you'll see the stores that we're working with. So far, CamoFire and Cabelas have been the biggies, but there's a bunch of other stores on there as well of products that we all use and brands we trust. So if you're getting ready to purchase some gear coming up this fall, I definitely encourage you to keep your eyes peeled on CamoFire. I'm purchasing almost all of my gear from there at this point. I just keep my eye on it, find good deals, and capitalize on it. So check them out, and we really appreciate the support. Things are continuing to grow, and it's all because of you out there listening. So thank you so much, and have a good one.